So are we live?
Not yet, ma'am.
लाइव है ना लाइव कर दिया
Thank you. Very warm good afternoon to all of you. I'm Dr. Swati Gupta, Joint Secretary, Cbse Academics, and I welcome you all on the webinar for sensitizing school about Cbse Handbook on Disaster Risk Reduction. This is for classes 6th to 10th. So basically, what board is trying to achieve through webinars is that we have already made a book on disaster risk reduction, and we have actually tried and amalgamate the concepts of the academic subjects with with disaster risk management and its practices. It is basically to give schools a better understanding of environment, risk involved with disasters, and the need for preparedness and resilience among students and teachers. The DRR course will focus on equipping students with skills to develop an emergency response plans, put together emergency supply kits, and conduct drills and simulations. Disasters have a very strong impact on the individual's emotions. So this course or this webinar will emphasize coping mechanism and approaches in case we face adversities. So basically, what we are trying to do is to equip ourselves for any future adversities if they come, and also trying to bring in even DRR or disaster risk reduction handbook with the current curriculum of the school. So there will be no extra burden on the teachers, and yet the topic can be taught through disaster risk reduction. So now I am handing over the webinar to Reshma ji to please conduct it further. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Swati Gupta ma'am, for your presence and for the address with such valuable insights. Ma'am, you are an inspiration. Thank you so much. Namaste and greetings of the day. Myself, Dr. Reshma Ganesh. On behalf of the entire team, I take this opportunity to express my heartfelt gratitude to the chairperson Cbse. I also express a sincere thank you to Dr. Joseph Emmanuel Sir, Director Academics, for the invaluable support. I would also like to extend a special note of gratitude to Dr. Swati Gupta ma'am, Joint Secretary Academics, for her immense and unwavering support that has been a beacon of strength guiding us in organizing this webinar to provide schools a deeper understanding of the environment, the risks involved, and a need for better preparedness, equipping students with skills such as critical thinking, decision-making abilities, resilience, and approaches to face adversities, highlighting the importance of integrating the disaster risk reduction concept with different subjects. Thank you so much, Dr. Swati Gupta ma'am. Friends, educationists, edu leaders, facilitators, thank you so much for enrolling yourself for this webinar and for your understanding of the urgent need to strengthen risk resilience in schools by incorporating risk DRR in the curriculum. Looking forward to your active participation and implementation of DRR in schools. This webinar on DRR is for 2 days. On day 1, we will be discussing on the introduction, understanding disaster management, the intentional shift from disaster management to disaster risk reduction, and the highlights of the manual. The next speaker, Ms. Padmini Sriraman, former principal of the Hindu Senior Secondary School, Chennai, will be taking us through integration of DRR with social science, followed by our next speaker, Ms. Anuradha Dandapani, coordinator, the Titan School, Hosur. She will be guiding us on integration of DRR and mathematics, followed by the next speaker, Ms. Neeru Madhu, HOD, Social Science Department of National Public School, Bengaluru. She will be discussing on interdisciplinary with DRR, followed by the final speaker for the day, Ms. Suryavati AN founder principal, Ekatwa Public School, Nandigama, Vijayawada. On day 2, we have integration of DRR with subjects science, Hindi, and English. Before I proceed, I would also like to take this opportunity to acknowledge and thank the efforts of the team who have worked on the manual disaster risk reduction in schools. The personalities and come up with this comprehensive manual. The content of this handbook has been meticulously crafted, curated, and scrutinized by the team. I express my special thanks to Mrs. Arunima Mazumdar and all the team members who have worked collaboratively on this vital DRR manual released by Cbse, and for the unwavering support that we have received by Dr. Swati Gupta ma'am. Thank you all once again. The Disaster Management course of the Central Board of Secondary Education aims to educate students about the concept of disaster, causes of disaster, mitigation measures, and to empower and develop an awareness towards reducing the occurrence of disasters. The objectives are to equip students with the skills to develop emergency response plans, to foster a deeper understanding of the risks involved with disasters, to emphasize the need for preparedness and resilience among students and teachers, to enhance thinking and decision-making skills to avoid disasters, and to create awareness of environment-friendly measures that reduce vulnerability to hazards. The purpose of integrating DRR, that is disaster risk reduction, with subjects in the school curriculum is to foster an all-inclusive approach. The activities integrated with the subjects will provide an opportunity to work collaboratively and hone their communication skills. Let me begin by showing you the pictures of some disasters that have taken place recently in the past few years. As we look at these pictures, dear friends, I want each one of you to reflect if it is a natural disaster or a man-made disaster. And I also want you to ponder if this disaster, though maybe a natural disaster, could it have been avoided? Or the damages caused, the destructions caused, could it have been lesser if we were more prepared, more proactive, and more cautious in the decisions made? This is a picture which we have been seeing quite often in the newspaper and news channels. Floods. Every year, several parts of our country and the world gets affected by floods. Hence, notably creating an awareness on the mitigation measures, prevention measures, recovery measures plays a crucial role. Landslides, in many cases, can we say that human activities are also contributing in causing these landslides? Can these landslides be evaded? We need to reflect on this. How can we contribute? How can we take responsibility? In October 2023, we are all aware of the major train collision that happened. It was a case of negligence. Another case of negligence was when a train ran without a driver. Both the driver and the assistant had got off the train and the train started moving. We must acknowledge and appreciate that immediately all the railroad crossings were closed to avoid accidents and a potential disaster was narrowly averted. Wars are again man-made. The Ukraine-Russian war, the war between Iran and Israel. The effects of war are widely spread and can be long-term. The trauma and suffering creates extensive emotional and psychological stress. Wars have negative consequences on infrastructure, social order, and on the economy. And we also get to hear about earthquakes occurring in different parts of the world, isn't it? Now, how often do we get to read that this disaster was avoided or these damages were averted, mitigated? For example, the cyclone in Bangladesh. The reduction in cyclone deaths in Bangladesh was thanks to a long-term education, the preparedness, the warning systems, evacuation, and sheltering programs. Therefore, the fatality was less. Similarly, the Airbus A320, both the wings were struck by a flock of birds soon after the flight's takeoff, making the aircraft lose all engine powers. But again, thanks to the awareness of the pilot, the mental preparedness could help recollect the lessons learned and glided the plane to ditching on the Hudson River, thereby saving all the 155 people on board, as the available time to avert the disaster was very less and the pilot had to take a crucial decision. The suspension bridge that collapsed as it had far more people present on the bridge when the incident occurred. Now that's where we need to sensitize our students, how they can calculate if the place is getting overcrowded and if they need to move out of that place to a safer place. Anuradha ma'am, while taking us through the DRR integration with mathematics, will throw more light on this. Why it is essential even for a mathematics teacher to highlight and integrate these mitigation techniques. The growing interconnectedness of the world's environment and technologies means that disaster can spread extremely quickly. A prime example is the COVID-19, which began as a local outbreak in China, rapidly spread across the world, leading to disruptions and deaths of millions. Hence, we need to create this awareness that many of these disasters are preventable because they are caused by human decisions, and many of these can be averted by the actions and investments that we make. So we need to collectively take this responsibility to create the right mindset in our future citizens, that is our students as well as all the stakeholders, to critically evaluate the causes and understand that most of these disasters can occur or in fact can be prevented by and from the choices that we all make. So now let us understand the concept of disaster. We are all familiar with the term disaster, which is natural or a man-made event which results in widespread human loss. We have seen, read, or may have witnessed that it is usually accompanied by damages to a large extent or even loss of many lives, leading to a lot of suffering. Thus, disaster disrupts the normal functioning of society. Hazard is another terminology that we are all familiar with and might have witnessed it directly or indirectly. It may be natural or man-made hazard. Natural disaster is caused by natural hazards, such as earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, again, resulting in a widespread loss of human lives and destruction of property. Types of natural disasters. Global warming makes places drier by increasing evaporation. Are human beings also responsible for aggravating drought? Hence, it is essential that we sensitize students on the consequences of global warming. The next type of natural disaster, cyclone, Hurricane Katrina. We have all heard of this or read about it, isn't it? It was a tropical cyclone that struck the southeastern USA in the year 2005. Its aftermath claimed many lives and is ranked as the costliest natural disaster in the history of USA. Floods. Every year, a part of India is affected by the fury of floods. either in the northeastern belt or in the south. Hence, it is extremely vital to make students understand the mitigation measures that can be undertaken. What are the forms of flood mitigation? How can we mitigate flood disasters? So we need to look into these. Earthquakes. The recent ones occurred in the USA, Japan, Taiwan, and I must say that schools are equipping students with mock drills, especially in these earthquake-prone areas, regions. Schools are also conducting fire evacuation drills once in each term. Landslide. The impact of a landslide can be extensive destruction and damage of infrastructure, loss of life, etc. It may be triggered because of heavy rains, and in some cases, human activities can also be contributing factor. So it becomes relevant to incorporate the measures that can be taken to reduce the risk of landslides. Now, coming to the man-made disasters. Disasters caused by human action, error, or negligence. The most recent ones are industrial and nuclear-related ones. Man-made disasters like the nuclear bombing, terrorism, oil spillage, criminality, industrial hazards, waste disposal, power outage, fire breakouts, railway accidents, engineering hazards, wars, transportation. Now let us see the causes and consequences of disasters. Causes of disasters. We had a quick look at some of the disasters. So what are these causes of disasters? Environmental factors like climate change, geological activity, human activities such as deforestation to make room for infrastructure expansion. A lot of deforestation is taking place, causing ecological imbalance. Global warming, landslides, soil erosion are the most noticeable effects of deforestation. Environmental factors we saw, and human errors like negligence, railway accidents, industrial accidents can have severe consequences on human health and on the environment. Technological failures such as air crash, intentional harm, terrorism, war. What are the consequences of disasters? Let us understand what are the consequences. Loss of life. One of the most immediate and tragic consequences of disasters is the loss of human life. This includes death caused directly by the disaster as well as secondary fatalities resulting from injuries, lack of access to medical care, or other factors. Damage to infrastructure and environment such as structural collapse, environmental contamination, spills of hazardous materials can pollute air, posing long-term health risks, displacement of communities, forcing people to evacuate their homes, or long-term recovery challenges, rebuilding and restoring damaged infrastructure. Economic losses, which includes direct economic losses, disruption of economic activities. Disasters can also have adverse impact on employment, agriculture, tourism and hospitality industry also can get adversely impacted. Social and health disruptions such as displacement and migration, social breakdown, health crisis, psychological trauma, mental health challenges, disruption of essential services. So this awakened the importance and need of disaster management. Introducing disaster management in schools helps students understand what and how of disaster management, its definition, the role of government organizations, communities, and NGOs. So what is disaster management? It is a process of effectively preparing for and responding to disasters. It involves strategically organizing resources. It also involves a systematic approach to managing the responsibilities of disaster prevention, preparedness, response, and recovery. What are the components of disaster management? Preparedness, that is, activities prior to disaster. Example, preparedness plans, emergency exercises. The next component is response. Activities during a disaster, that is public warning systems, emergency operations, search and rescue. These are some of the examples. Then we have recovery. They are activities following a disaster. Temporary housing, counseling, long-term medical care, grants. Then we have mitigation, that is activities that reduce the effects of disasters. Vulnerability assessment, public education are some of the examples. Understanding risks in disaster management by addressing deferred infrastructure maintenance and other causal factors can often prevent or at least reduce the fallout of disasters. For example, a poorly maintained levee system. Disaster management also involves examining and managing causal factors, assessing the extent to which a community can withstand a disaster. Disaster management also involves analyzing exposure to loss. For example, homes below sea level may face greater exposure to flooding. What are the principles of disaster management? The principles of disaster management includes minimizing casualties, prevention of further casualties, rescue of victims, first aid, evacuation, medical care, and reconstruction. What are the elements of disaster risk? Disaster often follow a hazard that negatively impacts a population. Hazards can take many forms such as natural, like earthquakes, biological, that is disease outbreaks such as plague, cholera, technological, such as chemical explosions, and social, such as stampedes, terrorisms. Vulnerability is made up of a wide range of physical, social, economic, environmental factors and are closely tied to development. Exposure effects may be direct effect like injuries, illness, or indirect effect, which is consequences we see over time. Implementation of disaster management. It is really interesting to note that the role of NGOs in disaster management has started changing from providing post-disaster relief to strengthening pre-disaster preparedness and mitigation through capacity building programs, public awareness campaigns, mock drills, workshops, etc. The Government of India enacted the Disaster Management Act, which envisaged the creation of National Disaster Management Authority, NDMA, National Disaster Response Force, NDRF. Disaster management strategy is to also provide a multidisciplinary, multi-skilled, high-tech specialist response force for all types of disaster capable of insertion by air, sea, or land. So what's the role of NDMA? The National Disaster Management Authority was established under the Disaster Management Act of 2005 and is chaired by Honorable Prime Minister. It has the responsibility for laying down the policies, plans, and guidelines for disaster management for ensuring timely and effective response to disasters in the country. NDMA established the National Disaster Response Force, that is NDRF, as the nation's top rescue response organization specializing in quick and effective responses extending to humanitarian aid in times of crisis. So now, why the shift from disaster management to disaster risk reduction? What is disaster risk reduction? DRR refers to the systematic approach to identifying, assessing, and reducing the risks of disasters. It encompasses policies, strategies, and measures to minimize vulnerabilities and enhance the resilience. Active in protecting ourselves and our communities from disasters, think of it as a well thought out plan that helps us identify, understand, and lessen the risks of things going wrong, whether it is a natural disaster or a human made hazard. So, in simpler terms, DRR is like having a game plan to keep ourselves safe and secure in the face of whatever challenges come our way. It's about building resilience and ensuring that when trouble knocks on our door, we are ready to face it head on and come out stronger on the other side. So, what are the objectives of DRR? The objectives of disaster risk reduction revolve around safeguarding lives, livelihoods, and communities from the impact of disasters. The first one, risk reduction. DRR aims to identify and understand the various hazards, vulnerabilities, and risks faced by communities. Risk assessment involves assessing their potential impact on people, infrastructure, and the environment. This helps prioritize actions and resources. The next, we have risk reduction, which includes implementing measures to strengthen infrastructure, planning, and enhance early warning systems. Moving on, we have the building resilience. This involves promoting sustainable development practices, fostering community participation, and empowering vulnerable groups. Next, promoting preparedness. DRR emphasizes the importance of preparedness and readiness to respond effectively to disasters. Thus, it includes conducting drills, simulations, developing emergency response plans, and ensuring access to essential resources and services. Integration into the mainstreaming. DRR seeks to integrate risk reduction considerations into all aspects of development planning and decision-making processes. This ensures that risk reduction becomes a fundamental part of sustainable development strategies. Now, the necessity for introduction of DRR through curriculum. Introducing disaster risk reduction into educational curricula is essential for several reasons. It helps build preparedness and resilience amongst all stakeholders, makes one lifelong learners, and builds awareness to critically evaluate before making any crucial decisions. Behavior change and risk reduction. Taking responsibility, being proactive, and taking constructive measures, empowerment and participation, integration of interdisciplinary and the understanding of interconnectedness, sustainable development skills gets enhanced. Hence, introducing DRR into educational curricula is essential for building a resilient society and is capable of effectively responding to and mitigating the impact of disasters. By equipping students with the knowledge, skills, and attitudes necessary to address disaster risks, education plays a critical role in saving lives, protecting livelihoods, and promoting sustainable development. Implementation of DRR integrated curriculum. Then and how? Curriculum development and integration. So teachers may follow the suggested lesson plans or develop their own teaching learning strategies suitable for their students. Classroom discussions on disaster risk reduction should be conducted with a positive approach, helping students develop practical confidence to deal with hazardous situations. Teacher training and capacity building is equally important. It's crucial for teachers to receive appropriate training on DRR strategies and management techniques. Schools should organize workshops, seminars, training sessions, which will enable them to effectively impart and enhance the knowledge and skills in this domain. Resource mobilization and infrastructure support include securing of the necessary resources, including books, teaching materials, multimedia tools, and infrastructure support. Community engagement and awareness raising, engaging parents, caregivers, community members in the implementation of DRR integrated curriculum, as well as fostering partnerships that support student learning both inside as well as outside the classroom. Engage students through practical activities. In addition to the theoretical knowledge, practical activities and simulations play a crucial role in disaster management education. Nothing like receiving first-hand experience, isn't it? So when you give them role plays, involve them in activities, the learning gets really embedded. Teachers can organize mock drills, evacuation exercises, first aid training sessions to familiarize students with emergency protocols. This hands-on approach will enable students to apply their learning in real-life situations. Integration into the annual planner. Facilitators can go through the DRR lesson plans given in the DRR handbook, and based on the same, they can plan the annual planner of the respective subjects. Chapters which are integrated with DRR, they should be allocated additional 1 or 2 periods based on the DRR lesson plan that they are taking up. Where to find the DRR handbook? Disaster Risk Reduction Handbook is available on the Cbse academic website. The link is put up here for you. cbseacademic.nic.in. Go to this website, and the steps to locate the DRR handbook is go to Cbse academic website, click on the handbook icon there, select the session 2023-24, and then you'll see so many manuals there. Select Disaster Risk Reduction Handbook. DRR implementation in schools is not just about providing solutions. It's about creating awareness and opening doors for them to critically evaluate as well as take proactive measures. Moving on to the next speaker, Ms. Padmini Sriraman, ma'am, who will be taking us through integration of DRR and social science. Over to you, Padmini, ma'am.
Ma'am, you're muted. Padmini, ma'am?
Oh, yes, sorry. Namaste to all. Thank you, Mrs. Reshma. That was a brief introduction on disasters that had taken place at various parts of the country and world, and also the causes and consequences were touched upon, along with the need for integrating the disaster risk reduction into the school curriculum. And now let us proceed to discuss about how it can be integrated into various subjects, especially the social science. You can refer the manual, page number 9 to 59, which gives you the details about the integration of the disaster risk reduction and social science. Now, what is the purpose? Let's look at the purpose of integrating the DRR with the social science. Disasters are inbuilt with social science. it has an impact on the human societies. And there are several reasons why disasters are intertwined with social issues, like human impact, vulnerability, marginalization, response, recovery efforts, policy, and governance. But the moment when we see disaster, people always look at the social science department. You know why? Social science is a study of people as individuals, communities, and societies. We talk about their behaviors and interactions with each other and with the natural environment. It's a subject which seeks to understand the evolving human system across the increasingly complex world and how our planet can be more sustainably managed. That is vital for our future. Now, integrating the disaster risk reduction manual with the subjects, with all the subjects in the school curriculum, is to foster the all-inclusive approach. Now, here, the students will be able to apply their understanding of the content knowledge to help them to develop the necessary skills and attitude to manage the disasters in their community. And a lot of activities are being brought out in the manual. Now, these activities which are given in the manual will help the students to think critically and collaboratively. It will also help them to improve upon the skills, especially the communication skills and all the 21st century skills. And it will empower the students with the knowledge, the skill, and the attitude, which are essential for reducing the risks posed by the disasters and also to contribute to building a very, very safe community. Now let's watch this video, which brings out the statistics of the impact of disasters on the earth and the need of bringing the disaster risk reduction manual into the curriculum. Please watch.
Disasters create large humanitarian and development challenges. The frequency and severity of disasters have increased over the last few years, also as a result of climate change. More than 226 million people are affected by disasters every year. More than 680,000 people died in earthquakes between 2000 and 2010, mainly due to poorly constructed buildings. Since 1980, drought and associated famine have claimed nearly 558,000 lives and affected more than 1.6 billion people. Cyclones, hurricanes, and typhoons affect 37 million people. It is thus important to keep in mind that disasters are not natural. They only occur when people lack preparedness or the ability to cope with hazards. We can use the following formula. While education systems are greatly affected by disasters, they are also part of the solution. Education on disaster risk reduction can provide life-saving information and skills that protect children and young people during and after disasters. Education has a vital role to play in preparing communities and building disaster-resilient societies and safe lives. Schools should be built to be disaster-proof. In the case of Japan, this saved many children who survived because they were in school. Disaster risk reduction should be introduced into school curricula and programs. This will ensure that learners understand the causes and consequences of disasters and know how to act when a disaster strikes. Learners should also participate, for example, in mapping school hazards, risks and vulnerabilities around them, and in developing school disaster preparation plans. This gives them the opportunity to learn by doing, as well as testing their newly acquired knowledge in practice. The entire learning community should work on safety measures in preparation for a disaster. It is our hope that as many countries will integrate disaster risk reduction into the planning and construction of their facilities, the management of their schools, as well as in their curricula and programs. UNESCO provides the tools for integrating disaster risk reduction into schools. Let's use these tools and get active today.
I hope you enjoyed that video. It was self-explanatory one. So we understand that the disaster is a massive scale. It is either natural or man-made, occurring in short or a long period. And this can lead to human, material, economic, and environmental hardships, which can be beyond the bearable capacity of the society. As per the statistics, India as a whole is vulnerable to 30 different types of disasters that will affect the economic, social, and human development potential to such an extent that it will have long-term effects on the productivity and the economic performance. Disasters can be classified into various categories. Water and climate disaster, which is like flood, hailstorms, cloudbursts, and cyclones. Geological disaster, landslides, earthquakes, and volcanic eruptions, which we still see in many places happening. Biological disaster, the viral epidemics we already underwent, we suffered because of the corona, the pest attacks, the cattle epidemic, and the locust plagues, which we are witnessing in many of the states in the country. Industrial disaster, the chemical and the industrial accidents. We already witnessed the Bhopal gas tragedy a few years back. Mine shaft fires and oil spills. Poor creatures in the oceans, they succumb to these oil spills. How to save them? Nuclear disasters, the nuclear core meltdowns, the radiation poisoning, which we still see in few countries in the world. Man-made disasters, the one which is the dangerous thing which is happening right now till today. The urban and the forest fires, the oil spill, the collapse of the huge building. How to stop it? Let's think about it. So we have to move ahead and think about how to stop it. See, the Disaster Management Act of 2005, it was brought out in order to integrate a process of planning, organizing, coordinating, and implementing measures for preventing the threat of any disaster, reducing the risk of any disaster and its impact, and the readiness to deal with such disaster, promptness in dealing with the disaster, and assessing the severity of the same, and finding out some rescue measures and relief measures and rehabilitation and reconstruction. You could just see the map put up over there. It shows the NDRF located in so many locations and taking up the responsibility in safeguarding and protecting the people when the disaster strikes. So the DM Act of 2005 is very effective in planning and organizing and coordinating and implementing and taking steps to prevent and to reduce and to be ready and always to be prompt and assess the situation to come forward with rescue and relief measures. So how are we going to do that? Let us look at the table of contents. So this table of contents given in the Disaster Risk Reduction Manual briefly explains to the teachers of how to take the concept to the classroom and then integrate these disasters and bring awareness among the students. So the DRR Social Science curriculum in the manual starts from the page number 10. And you also saw the in the website, the book was, the manual was already put up in the first session. You can also see the manual over here. And there's a link by which you can access the manual and go through the same. And there is a flip book, which has been beautifully designed to be as a resource for the teachers. So the teachers and the students can access the flip book, which will be a supportive reference material for linking the concepts with disasters and to create awareness among everybody. Now let's go deeper into the content of the social science. I have taken a lesson grade 8. Now this is for grade 8 and the NCERT textbook, the resources and development, the chapter number 1 referring to the chapter name resources. And the related topic of the disaster risk reduction over here is threat to sustainable development due to exploitation of resources. And you can see the table posted over here, which shows the table of content. This is just a part of the content given over here. Please go through the book and you will be able to see more lessons starting from class 6 to class 10, which is being worked out over there, which will be a handy resource for the teachers to take it to the classroom. Now, how to teach this lesson? Let's look into the lesson. The content of the lesson plan. Now here the teacher is supposed to teach the lesson first. Now after teaching the lesson, the teacher can refer to some of the pictures which can depict the unwise use of resources and that can destroy the earth and explain to the students how these resources can be conserved and preserved. And further, the teacher can discuss about the judicious use of resources and to have sustainable development, which is the NEP's policy also. In short, the raw material extraction, the processing always impact on the environment, resulting in soil degradation, water shortages, biodiversity loss, damage to the ecosystem, and global warming. We are always talking about the global warming till date. What is happening around the country and the world? There is climate change and there is an ozone depletion. How are we going to counter it? That's a big question among all of us. So the teacher can teach the concept of circular economy, which can be explained to the students to conserve the natural resources. So how to do that? So you can take up some activity. The teacher being very innovative and creative, you can always choose certain activities which you think is suitable for your classroom and go ahead and do the activity so that the children are understanding the purpose of the same. Now here we have suggested certain activities. One activity is like having a classroom discussion, and here the teacher can discuss about the importance of the resources and the need of conserving the same, and the students must participate in these discussions. And you can also have some art integrated work. Now we are already talking about art integration in all the subjects. So introduce art integrated work by doing some coloring work, painting, picture album, wall magazine, bulletin board, etc. Anything can be done by the students wherein they are able to bring out, visualize, and visualizely they can bring out what they really want to do for the sake of countering the disasters. Now here we are suggesting the best out of the waste craft work, and this to understand the value of conservation, or they can even make poster making and slogan writing. So you can see on the site some of the activities done by the students is already been posted over there, and there's a small chart work and a slogan, a simple slogan like grow more tree. It's as simple as possible. Beyond this, the teachers can also introduce some songs, some skits, and also a storytelling session. Now here, there is a story. It's available in the manual. It's also available in the YouTube. So you can just play that for the students. The story is about a date tree. And the story is about the sustainable development where a father is planting a tree and the child grows along with the tree. And when the child becomes a woman, she also tries to plant the tree. So why do we do this? Planting trees can increase the resilience of the ecosystems and help to minimize the climate change effects and buy people and the government some time to adapt to change to the conditions, to the changing climatic condition. So the students are also asked to write down their reflections of learning out of this YouTube or the video in the journal. So they have to just understand the essence of the story and then write their reflections in the journal, which is a must activity. Otherwise, the learning outcome is totally lost. Apart from this, the teacher can also create a flow chart. It can be an empty flow chart which the teacher can create and keep it on the wall or on the chart and ask the students to propose strategies of sustainable environment management. It can be a graphic organizer or a flow chart wherein the children can come and they can write their strategies or suggestions into that. So here a few suggestions are collected from the students. It's about the environmental sustainability, and they have contributed ideas like renewable energy, wastewater reuse, global relation, climate action, no poverty, zero hunger, affordable and clean energy, and of course sustainable industrialization also. So this helps the students to really participate. Every child will participate, and that is what we are expecting. The learning outcome would be wonderful. Students will develop the means to indicate how sustainability issues are impacting their immediate social economic environment. and they will be able to evaluate how each person can contribute towards reduction of consumption, recycling, and reusing things. And there are the posters which you can see, which have been done by the students, and beautiful drawing. There's an art integrated work, and a message is being conveyed through the poster, wherein the children are able to think. Ultimately, what do we want? We have to trigger the thinking process of the students. And there's a small project also posted over there. It is about the disaster management and mitigation done by the students. Now, let me move on to the next lesson. Now, this is a lesson of class 10th, and this is in the page number 58. Now, here, it's a topic taken from the NCERT textbook from Contemporary India 2, and the chapter name is Minerals and the Energy Resources. And the DRR related topic is mining hazards and over exploitation of the resources. Now, what is the teacher supposed to do over here? Once again, the teacher has to teach the content, which is very important because the textbook has got a lot of details. Let the teacher complete all those details and then show the picture of mining to introduce a chapter depicting the devastation created by over mining and its other associated activities. So the chapter emphasizes on the causes and effects of over mining, which leads to land degradation, air pollution, noise pollution, and health risks, and its long-term effects on the environment. So this is a clear understanding of the students of, first of all, about the mining and the resources, and the second is the negative impact which is happening on the society and on the human being. That is where the teacher makes the difference. We are not just going to complete the lesson and conduct an assessment. We are going to complete the lesson and connect it to the real life situation of what is the positive impact and what are the negative impact, and what can the student do to counter the negative impact is the most important thing. So how are we going to proceed? We have to do certain activities. So we suggest certain classroom activities over here. As I already told, that the teacher can be innovative and creative in carrying this message to the students by choosing an excellent activity of choice. Now here the classroom discussion activity is sustainable mining is the need of the hour. A heading can be given and they can have a debate and discussion. And then there can be a seminar or a PPT presentation on mining and the health safety acts. And you can also have demonstration skits and role play, which will focus on the mineral conservation and sustained use of the minerals. You can see the children over there doing a skit. Need not have a costume. They can be in the simple school uniform, and it can be a classroom activity also. The teacher can do it as a classroom activity, or it can even become an annual function in the school where they are bringing out a message in the annual day. And there's a project done by the students on the pollution. So what is the learning outcome? The learning outcome is the students are able to analyze the importance of using natural products and saving the environment, and discuss the causes of air pollution and its effect, evaluate the harmful effects of oil spill, explore the role of community and government to reduce overmining. And they can have activities like making disaster cards. It can be a flashcard or a disaster cards, which can be handy for everyone to go through what is there and how to solve it. And you can see the students holding the charts done by them. So how happy they are when they are doing it. The learning happens when they really do certain activity all by themselves and bring out the essence of fighting against the disasters. Now let me take you to another lesson. And this is class 7th. It's again from the NCERT textbook, Our Environment, and the chapter number 3. Chapter name is Our Changing Earth. And the related topic is earthquake. Now again, here the teacher is supposed to explain about the earth movements. So while teaching about the earth movements, the teacher explains that the lithosphere is broken into number of plates known as lithosphere plates. And the movement of these plates will cause changes on the surface of the earth, and it will produce sudden movements like earthquakes and volcanoes, which cause vast destruction. Loss of people leaving their homes, parents missing their children, children missing their parents, homelessness, such a devastating effect. Even till date, we are witnessing the earthquake and the volcano taking place in the various parts of the world. And the use of the pictures, the videos help students to understand the impact of the earthquake. Now, what shall the teacher do as an activity? So the teacher can have a model demonstration. First, the teacher can do the model demonstration and can depict and show the movement of the plates that cause earthquakes. And then she or he can ask the students to make some models and explain it all by themselves. And you can also have a discussion. The cause and impact of an earthquake can be discussed by referring to pictures, and the case studies can be done, and it can be given for a group discussion among the students and to come forward with solutions. They can watch the videos and reflect on the journals, because every time they watch a video and there is an understanding, there is a learning outcome over there, and they have to record it in the journal, which is very, very important. So n number of videos are there, and even the news channels and the medias are projecting these disasters, which can be viewed by the students and reflect on them. So what is the learning outcome? The students will be able to analyze the reasons and evaluate the impact of an earthquake. They will be able to associate the terms epicenter, focus, and seismograph in their analysis. The students will draft a plan for mitigation measures before and after an earthquake. You can already see a picture over there. The NRDF staff is giving a demonstration for the students. And the next is you can integrate the same with the other subjects. It's an approach like a natural disasters. Here you can see art is linked, social science is linked with the help of a map, personal development by making a first aid, language by writing a poem and a manual, science, you can talk about flow charts, diagrams and cause and effect, maths, you can talk about the volume, diagram and graph. So this approach will help the students to develop a holistic understanding of the disaster management. Especially in social science, they can explore the social economic impacts of the disaster. We are talking so much. Is it possible to stop the disasters? Impossible. We cannot stop the natural disasters, but we can arm ourselves with knowledge. So many lives wouldn't have to be lost if there was enough disaster preparedness among us. Students can play an active role as a change maker of resilience. They can participate in the risk assessment and early warning systems, community-based actions, school evacuation protocols, and recovery plans, thereby contributing to reducing disaster and climate risk. They can also be advocate of the DRR by raising awareness through social media campaigns and in-person activities. It is hoped that the Cbse guidelines in the DRR manual will empower the students to assess and understand their risks with a scientific temper and participate in actions to build resilience and a safe zone for all. The teachers must use the manual effectively and equip the students with all the skills to face and overcome the crises and challenges and thereby have a safe and healthy future ahead. Thank you so much. Thank you to all. Now over to Mrs. Anuradha to continue by integrating mathematics to the DRR topic. Thank you very much to everyone.
Namaste. Thank you, Padmini ma'am. It was an enriching experience to listen to you, and you seamlessly weaved disaster risk reduction with social sciences. Welcome to the next session on how to integrate disaster risk reduction with mathematics. So when it comes to different disasters, when it is earthquake, we are talking about the magnitude and intensity of the earthquake. And when we talk about tsunami, it is the tide gauge, size of the wave, speed of the wave. When a building collapses, it is in what ratio did they mix the sand with the cement, and such thoughts goes on. When it comes to bridge collapse, as we see in that introductory session, it is the number of people on the bridge during that time, and what was the shape of the columns that was used to build the bridge, and at what angles they were kept. So then when it comes to boat capsize also, what is the volume when we can talk about the life buoyant that they are using. So what is the shape of it, and how is it helping in giving the buoyancy and the equilibrium of the boat, and everything depends on the math concepts. When it comes to forest fire, it is the latitudes and longitudes, the beautiful big Cartesian plane that we can talk about. So that way we can understand the risk of a disaster very well with the help of mathematics. And any disaster, we can understand it properly. We can see the data analysis. Data comes and we analyze, we graphically represent it, we interpret the data, and we understand the severity of it. We can see that any disaster can beautifully be understood with the help of data handling. Data handling, the math concept will go with any such disaster, and we will be able to understand them very well. Then it comes to critical thinking and problem solving. Beautifully, when we talk about this disaster risk reduction with mathematics, there is a scope for interdisciplinary learning. We can't find a better opportunity to integrate mathematics with the real life, real world context. When we try to understand disaster risk through the mathematics, it becomes more meaningful, more connected, and more impactful. And it also builds the empowerment and resilience. And to understand it best, the risk assessment and management, we have to depend on mathematics. So, integrating disaster risk reduction with mathematics becomes very meaningful and important, and of course, very easy to. In disaster risk reduction manual, the math lesson plans are starting from page number 97. 97 to 127. There are lesson plans running from classes 6 to classes 9. So when we look at class 6, we have talked about right from crop failure, from short term things like a boat capsizing that happens immediately, and something that we cannot foresee, earthquakes and tsunamis, and something that is gradually happening over a period of time, and we will be able to feel its impact after many years, like global warming or loss of biodiversity. So man-made disasters and natural disasters, a wide range of such disasters are taken for integrating with the various math concepts. And right from knowing our numbers and decimals and fractions, moving on to the ratios and proportions, we can see that from Padmini ma'am's equation that she showed, more vulnerability, more risk. Same way, more awareness, less risk. So, what is it? It is just a direct and inverse proportion, we can tell. So, that way, we found that there is a lot of scope for integrating mathematics with the disaster risk reduction, and we grab the opportunity. So, whether it is measurement and mensuration, whether it is comparing quantities, arithmetic progression, and quadratic equations, we tried to integrate the risk reduction with mathematics. We can see that there are so many things responsible for a particular disaster. We can take them as a variable, and a mathematical modeling will clearly help us understand and be prepared and be able to respond suitably to the disasters. Let us see a sample lesson plan. All the mathematics disaster risk reduction plans are having 7 components. As you can see, the first component tells us the class and the topic which we have taken to integrate with a chosen disaster. So here, the disaster that is chosen for class 7 chapter perimeter and area is crowd crush. And the reference is given to the NCRT textbook, the rationalized syllabus. So the chapter runs from 144 to 159, and it is perimeter and area. we are trying to use the concept to understand crowd crush. So, moving on to the next component of the lesson plan, there is a description of how mathematics concept can be integrated will lead to the crowd crush, and it is also talking about what a crowd crush is. As we can see, children, they go to temples, they go to concerts, they go to watch matches in the stadium. It can also be a movie. We can't say when the crowd will become more, and there are uh, possibilities of getting into a kind of disaster. So, to understand this, they try to find out the area they will be occupying to feel comfortably, so they can understand that it is an oval space which can fit into a rectangle of 30 centimeter breadth and 60 centimeter length. So they find the area, and that is the area minimum requirement for an individual to comfortably be in a place, and they find out what happens if more and more people come to the place. So, for that, they take a reference of 1 meter by 1 meter square, or a square of 1 square meter. And as the number of people standing inside that square increases, so they experience the crowd density. So they come to understand that if there is just 1 square meter square and there are more than 5, 6 people, how uncomfortable it is to be there. And the third component has a picture. We can any picture, such picture can be shown to the students, and we can talk about them, whether they are comfortable, whether they have control over their movement, or it is the crowd, the people around is moving the individual. So we can talk about it. So such pictures will help them understand the severity of the disaster that might happen. So the next component is the learning outcome. We can see that a mathematic concept is the learning outcome, and how it is used to understand a disaster becomes the allied learning outcome. So, through the math concept, they try to understand the disaster, and the other important learning outcome becomes how they will learn the preventive or precautionary measures to survive the disaster that is taken. So, moving on to the next component, many teaching learning strategies are suggested. And here there is a scope of using multiple intelligences. We may design a bodily kinesthetic activity, or a linguistic activity, or musical. So here there is a provision. And following that, we can also integrate art. We can bring in interesting audio visuals, so that the impact will be better and the children will be able to learn more. So in detail, we'll see the some of the teaching learning suggestions that are given. We may start the lesson with an interesting video, as you know, that will grab the attention of the students. And for that, we can choose the available sources, and we can see whichever is most appropriate to the age group that we are teaching and their experiences. So here in this particular video, one such video, we can see that there is a doctor talking to the people, and he is talking about the different types of disaster that could happen in a crowd surge, crowd collapse, crowd crush, and how to survive that. There are videos where it is beautifully explained that the student should have their hands just across the chest as a boxer, and how that will help him uh, save the important internal organs and have a scope for proper breathing. So, the previous one, the second component. So, after that, we can take them to a playground, or in the classroom, we can find a place where within a square of 1 square meter area, making one person stand, and we can talk about how comfortable he feels. And then by increasing the number of people, they can express how comfortable they are. And when they feel uncomfortable and threatened, when they feel like getting out of the square, so making them experience the crowd density can happen. Following that, we can tell them the precautionary measures that they should take in case they get into such crowd pressures. So we can see that they're keeping the hands like a boxer, and in case they happen to fall down, how they have to get into a fetal position so that they can still survive. So, like this, a 40-minute is broken up into various interesting activities. The lesson plan also gives us enough references to choose from. Before going to the class, we can refer to the various links that are given and be equipped to address the classroom. And the next part is the manual, the journal that they have to write. So a sample manual is given where the students will be writing what they experienced during their DRR session. The next slide gives us the sample. So they make a note of the date and they write the different activities that they underwent. Evidences to be supplied following that. That could be the slogan that they wrote, that could be the poster that they drew, or if it is a bodily kinesthetic activities, a picture can come in there. So the evidences we support there. Following that, the child's reflection on what the takeaways are. So the child can tell how to avoid, when to leave the place, understanding the crowd density, building on in that place, and how to survive in case of getting caught in the crowd. So with this reflection, the journal entry must happen so that it is ensured that the teaching learning has happened, the awareness is built. The manual also have interesting visuals. As in we spoke about earlier, NDMA has rich resources, NDRF has rich resources. The links to those resources are given as reference for the teachers and children to access and be more aware of. And also, there are interesting apps that links are given. The official website of National Center of Seismology, that is an interactive app. We can get to know at that particular place when was the earthquake happen and what was the intensity and things like that. Okay. And there are also links for extended reading. It is just a stimulus. Just a stimulus is given in the lesson plan, and there are links for extended reading activities. There are engaging activities that the children can do. Here is an example of how the different shaped columns are built by the students to understand which column bears heavier load and manages more disturbance. So that way, enhanced learning is ensured. And here is a mapping of how the various man-made and natural disasters are mapped into the different subjects of different classes. So this way, we can also collaborate with other subject teachers to ensure a very good interdisciplinary learning is happening, where the disaster risk reduction is addressed through mathematics. So if we prepare today, we can thrive tomorrow. And this disaster risk reduction starts with each of us. Thank you. Let us all gear up to integrate our subject, mathematics, with the disasters risk reduction. Thank you. Over to Neeru, ma'am, for more interesting interdisciplinary activities. Thank you.
Thank you, Anuradha ma'am. Namaste to all. Namaste. Now, I would like to start by bringing your attention to the current geological situation that we call as the Anthropocene. Now, this Anthropocene is viewed as a period during which human activity has a dominant influence on climate and environment. This influence has grown so much that it has led to various disasters around us. Education and disaster risk reduction, therefore, needs to provide a vision of an interdisciplinary and a learner centered way to empower our students to advance a pro social and an environmental agenda so that in whatever endeavor that they are in, whether it is their organizations, communities, or personal lives, the students should be able to use their knowledge towards reducing the risks around us or the disasters around us. So the objectives that I'm going to take you through are to be able to understand the meaning of the term interdisciplinary, to learn how we can create the an interdisciplinary approach towards DRR, and to discuss the ways in which the schools can actually implement this approach in their classes. So, what is interdisciplinary? Now, generally, as a CBSE curriculum, we do teach our children different concepts in English or Hindi or maths or science. Now we've seen DRR, how we can integrate DRR in math or social science. So when we are talking about such ways of bringing, or such an approach of making children understand a particular concept, we call it a multidisciplinary approach. Whereas integrating knowledge and methods from different disciplines and using them to bring in a very synthesized or a very concise approach is what we call as the interdisciplinary. So, interdisciplinary thus means involving two or more different subjects or areas of knowledge, and interdisciplinary concepts or the education refers to the concepts or teaching of those concepts which requires learning a single subject from multiple perspectives. Now very soon we'll be able to understand why are we talking about interdisciplinary in DRR, because interdisciplinary concepts and education is considered to be one of the best when it comes to boosting the learning outcomes and making the whole understanding process very interesting for the children, and they remain enthusiastic towards learning. So the next question that comes into our mind is why interdisciplinary? Now, here I would like to ask a question or bring into your attention these few pictures that you see on your screen. Now, when you look at these pictures, maybe, when you see these are all either man made disasters or a natural disaster, or maybe a combination of both. When we talk about any of these disasters, can we isolate any one of these disasters from being taught in one particular subject? Can I talk about, let's say, talking about unmanaged garbage? Now, as a geography teacher, when I talk about, I want to sensitize my children about the unmanaged garbage around us, which is leading to increased landfills. So, do I just tell them these are the areas where landfills are increasing or they are on a rise? Or, as an environmental science teacher, can I not talk about the pollution that is created by these landfills, which have been increasing day by day? As a civics teacher, I can always talk about the responsibility of the citizens, of the government, and therefore leading to such an unmanaged condition. Now, talking about a biology teacher, if I'm talking about the unmanaged garbage around me as a biology teacher, I can always talk about the ecosystems that are getting damaged by this. As a chemistry teacher, Again, I can always touch upon the contamination of the soil and water, which is due to the leachate, which is created by this unmanaged garbage. Therefore, any subject that I teach, I can relate the disaster caused by the unmanaged waste around us and how can it be reduced. So that is just one example from the pictures that I have taken, and that is the whole the disaster risk reduction program all about. Similarly, all the other man-made and natural disasters can be reduced through the interdisciplinary approach. Now, looking at how can we make disaster risk reduction interdisciplinary? Let me take you through these few simple steps that we can follow as teachers and make disaster risk reduction interdisciplinary. Now, the very first thing is to be able to identify an object, the learning objective. For example, which aspect of disaster risk reduction can I be teaching in my class through multiple subjects of that level? Secondly, I should be able to refer to the DRR manual, wherein all the lesson plans, objectives, activities are very clearly stated. Then I work upon preparing a very simple lesson plan for myself or as a team of different teachers who have been able to identify the similar topics. Next, I would be able to identify the strategies or the activities that I want to use as to emphasize the TRR factor. And finally, we can see that we can get our desired learning objectives. And filling up the TRR journal will be the final step. Now, I'm going to take you through three examples very quickly. As in, if I'm a teacher, for example, let's look at the first example. If I'm a teacher of grade 10, social science or history or probably math or science, our objective can be that we want to sensitize our children about this changing climate, about the heat waves that we are experiencing today. Now, how do we bring it as an interdisciplinary project or an interdisciplinary topic into our classes? What do? We explain the harmful effects of. Now, previously, as a social science teacher, also, ma'am has, explained certain similar topics that can be touched upon. We tell them about the heat waves. We ask them about their experiences, and finally, we help them understand the importance of judicious utilization of resources. That is what our objective can be. And therefore, we as a team of teachers, we can identify topics from, let's say, from geography, where grade 10 has minerals and energy resources. In economics, they have development as another chapter. In mathematics, they can use arithmetic progressions to understand the heat waves, the increasing heat waves rather. In science, they have carbon and its compounds, where they talk about how these carbon compounds can create environmental disasters. In English, there are topics like the trees, where we can talk about the environmental conservation. So this is the way we can make climate change or heat waves as a topic which can be interdisciplinary and can be taught in an interdisciplinary way. So, what do we do next? We refer to the DRR manual, the Disaster Risk Reduction Manual, where we'll find quite elaborate lesson plans with our learning objectives, topics given, the activities given, as very rightly stated by Anuradha ma'am and Padmini ma'am previously. So, you can choose the activities that you can do with the students by making it into an interdisciplinary project. And next, we can probably create a very small lesson plan or a quick lesson plan, or we can go ahead with whatever is given in the TRR manual and create a lesson plan which would help us understand this is my objective, these are the activities I want to perform in the class, and therefore I will be able to attain my learning outcomes. Moving on, the next very important aspect being emphasizing the DRR factor. Now, the whole objective of this webinar or the whole objective of the team disaster risk reduction is to be able to sensitize our children towards these disasters and to be able to work towards reducing these risks from the disasters, right? So for example, now, so this can be done through various activities like posters, active group discussions, research based cases, case studies. Now, for example, recently, in 2019, Niti Aayog had, released that Kerala has very well achieved. Kerala has been ahead in achieving the India's SDG goals, and Bihar has been at the bottom, almost at the bottom. So where do we stand today? Right, so we can ask our students to find out and understand that which are the states that are working towards improvising our living conditions, the SDG goals, and it all happens only when they are given a chance to discuss, to do research work, and through various activities. The most important idea here is to emphasize the disaster risk reduction factor. And finally, we will see that the learning objective is definitely being achieved. Now, here our learning objective being moving from the linear economy to the circular economy, and for grade 10 students to understand the importance of sustainable development and circular economy is extremely important. They will be able to identify how development should go hand in hand with sustainability. We cannot just be towards urbanization or concretization. They should be able to adapt to the sustainable ways of living. So this is just one of the examples. Moving on to the next example 2 here I have for you is grade 7. Now, let's say as a grade 7 teacher, I want to talk about materialism, consumerism. I want to teach them about waste management, how they should, reduce this consumerism attitude, because today children are so attracted by different things around them that they just want to buy things and just throw them, right? It is all use and throw things that we are in this world today. So how do I sensitize them about that, keeping that as my objective? Once again, I can refer to my DRR manual. I can identify that, yes, in civics, I can talk to them about markets around us. In science, they have wastewater story. In mathematics, using the concept of data handling. Or in Hindi, they have another chapter about extreme consumerism, Khan Peen Ki Badalti Tasveer. Using all these chapters, I can definitely bring an idea about how to reduce materialism and consumerism. Once again, now, what is my objective here? The clear objective is that, is this what I want to live with? None of us want to really live with this kind of a mess around us. So the clear objective is this. Keeping this objective in mind, what do I do next? I refer the DRR manual. I prepare my lesson plan. That's the next step for me. And after I prepare my lesson plan, I'm clear about my learning objectives. I'm clear about what kind of activities I can do with them through the emphasis on the DRR factor. I do various activities with them. The next slide is going to show me how I can emphasize on the DRR factor again through activities, the group activities, talking about case studies like Indore. In this case, Indore has been, granted the cleanest city of India from past 4-5 years today, and now very soon Bhopal is also going to be top in the list for keeping the city clean. So such initiatives taken, and when it can happen in one city of India, why not in all across our country, right? So, and that has to happen through our children. The next step, once again, is uh, hence to understand that what is my learning outcome, expected learning outcome. It is as simple as responsible consumerism and an efficient waste management. So through such pictures, through such videos, we can definitely help our children understand. Now, very quickly, I'll take you through the third example just to understand the steps. The third example, let's say we want to make them understand, a grade 6 student, we want to make them understand the seriousness that they need to have on the roads when they are on the road, how to prevent accidents. Now, it's very surprising that, as per the statistics in the past few years, the road deaths in the road accidents have only been on a rise. For example, in 2010, it was 1.3 lakh people dying on the road. But by 2021, it has increased to 1,53,000 and more. Right? So it is extremely important that we help children understand now what is my learning objective here? What am I going to, look at? The next slide shows me what are my learning objectives, what am I trying to reach out to my children. What are the reasons for rising road accidents? Overspeeding, drunken driving, distractions to the driver, and so many more, including the enforcement of law, which is not happening. Many people turn into giving bribes to in order to get their licenses, and so many other things. So such things have to be prevented. Such things have to be prevented from happening. And how can we do that? By making our children aware that what can such disasters lead to. Once again, referring the DRR manual, trying to identify the chapters that can help me understand, bring this chapter to, bring this concept to our children, and I'm sure we will be able to achieve our learning objectives. Through the learning outcomes, we will be able to, by emphasizing on the DRR factors, we will definitely be able to achieve our learning outcomes. So here, if you see, in fact, our students can be our ambassadors for a very positive change, not only on the road, but across the country. So, just to sum up, how do you think we can make disaster risk reduction interdisciplinary? A few very simple steps if we follow. Firstly, identifying the learning objective. What disaster do I want to talk about? Referring the DRR manual, which is available on the Cbse website, preparing a very basic lesson plan, coming together as teachers of different subjects of the same level, selecting the activities and the strategies, and most importantly, emphasizing the DRR factor. And finally, we will see that we are able to get our learning outcome, and we should insist that students also fill up the DRR journal as explained by Anuradha ma'am in the previous presentation. Hence, I would like to conclude that it is important that we learn to coexist. We should be a part of the solution and not, definitely not, the pollution or the rising pollution around us. When we all talk about the risks around us and the ways in which we can reduce them, the change is sure to come. Let's build a safe and a sustainable India by creating an inspiring study environment for our children, turning them into aware and responsible citizens to be able to reduce the risks around us with an interdisciplinary approach. Thank you so much. Over to Ms. Suryavati to talk about the DRR implications and the way forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Niruma. Good afternoon, everybody. Namaste. And in the concluding session, I would like to emphasize and talk upon the school safety policy guidelines, and the manual reference pages for all of us are from 200 to 210. There are 10 very important pages, and this is the overview of my entire presentation here today. Section 1 talks about the introduction to school safety. Section 2, hazard risk and vulnerability assessment. And 3 talks about the preparedness for the disaster management, and 4, response to the hazards, and 5, mitigation measures. So we'll look at each of these sections, very, very important ones. And now that we all know about, what are these disasters and how do we reduce the risk and how do we manage this and how do we integrate it in the classrooms, we also need to know how we need to have the SOPs or the standard operating procedures in place. And section 1, as I spoke about earlier, talks about the introduction. And under this section, we have a school profile. Very soon, I'll be showing you that format in the next slide. But then a school profile with some 19 components talks about, are we as a school prepared? This is more for the principals who are attending and also the teachers who are a part of this committee members. So we need to have a school profile. And then what is the aim and objective of a plan? Now, if you are coming up a disaster management plan, what are, in which, looking at the demographical situation of the school, what are some of those things that we would want to have it as an objective when we talk about it? The third one is the geographical location of the school, not only just where the school is indicated, but also your school plan? Do you all have the school plans? Each of the member of the school community, each of you as a teachers, do you know the school plan thoroughly? Is it visibly present? So that in at the times when there are certain disasters, that we know through which area we need to move on. So next we will be looking at this annexure. Yeah, this is what it is. There are some 19 questions where we all need to sit, and then the principal, along with the principal, the committee members have to finalize how many number of chemistry laboratories are there, how many floors, do we have a kitchen, in case there is a kitchen, what kind of facility is available to see that it is with the people around there are safe and it doesn't cause any hazard, and how many playgrounds are there, are they open, are there any electrical things which are coming in, are there any open wells there? So all these things are what define the school profile, wherein we look at it from the lens of a safety first lens and then fill up this. So this is about the first part, which is section 1, which is introduction or the school profiling. Section 2 talks about the hazard risk and the vulnerability assessment. So now that you have a school profile, you also know have an aim and objective for how you're going to plan up. We now have to assess the vulnerability aspect of it and how hazardous it is with respect to our schools. The first one is non-structured assessment, which can be done by the teachers, a few select students as a group exercise. Now, as a team, we all sit together, we collaborate, we understand, okay, these are certain things that we need to look at. This is the place where our school is located. It is heavily traffic. There is a heavy traffic on this area, or whenever it rains heavily, this area gets flooded or certain things, or there could be landslides happening in a few areas. So
Let's move to the next slide. Section 3 is about preparedness. So, constitution of school, the DM committee composition of the core team and its roles and responsibilities during different phases, constitution of sub-team, and identification of roles and responsibilities of each of the sub-team members, the task force before, during, and after disaster. And the next is the school may comprise the following teams, task forces: awareness generation, warning and information dissemination team, an evacuation team, search and rescue team, that is only teachers to be member of this team, fire safety team, first aid team, bus safety team. For each bus, there should be a separate safety team wherever applicable, and site security team. Section 3 in preparedness, the recommended structure for a school disaster risk reduction committee. There should be a committee in place with the following members: chairperson, who is principal. Usually the principal is the chairperson of this committee. Vice principal, heads of primary and middle sections also to be included. The education officer, deputy education officer of that zone, parent teacher association, the president of this PTA, students, it can be from NCC, NSS, Scouts and Guides, head boy, head girl. Ideally, it's nice to have them in a part of this committee. Representative of relief, revenue, disaster management department, or district administration department, or anyone from the municipal corporation. Representative from the fire services, from the closest fire station which is closest to the institution, the school. or from any civil defense personnel can also be inducted into the committee. Representatives of police, again from the nearest police station, representative from the health department, a local doctor, a warden from the civil defense also is good to have in the DRR committee. The subcommittee which can work under overall supervision of school DM, the subcommittee, their roles, awareness generation and warning and information dissemination team, evacuation team, search and rescue team, fire safety team, first aid team, bus safety team, which we already spoke about, and the site security team. We covered these, the SDMC. So the resource inventory for the preparedness, they should include listing of resources available inside the school campus, which could be used during any disaster situation for an effective response, identification and listing of resources outside the school within the vicinity of maybe 5 kilometers, nearest hospital, health center for emergency treatment, there's the police station, the fire station, their numbers, the address, all should be clearly kept ready. Updating of important telephone numbers, it should be put up in the important areas, especially in the principal's room. Critical health problem record of each child to be maintained by school and also displayed on his iCard with blood group. That should be mentioned along with the updated contact details of parents or guardians, and an alternative contact person's details also should be given in this iCard. Mechanism for alerting students and teachers during school time, including installation of alarm, school map with evacuation plan in place. We have all these annexures put up, and disaster preparedness, the checklist is also there in the attached annexure. Annual calendar for conducting various preparedness activities along with the plan to implement it. This will include the list of various awareness generation programs to be conducted by the school annually. Action plan for conducting mock drills and development of a checklist to identify the gaps. I know most of the schools, you are regularly conducting these mock drills, especially most of the schools, I hear them saying that each term we are conducting a mock drill. Very good, and it is equally important to conduct these mock drills. And then the steps for updating of the disaster management plan, indicating the timeline and the process of doing it, along with the roles of each teacher and the other non-teaching staff too. Moving on. What are the checklist for an emergency management plan? That, as mentioned, those annexures, this is the checklist that has been put up for you in the screen. The name of the school and the location is mentioned. Then have the emergency numbers been confirmed with the concerned departments? When is it that you last checked? Have these numbers changed? So these are the few checklists that we can all keep. You can click a screenshot of this and ensure or modify it according to your institution where it is located. Does the plan give emphasis on the more vulnerable children below class 5? Does the plan address the students with special physical, mental, and medical needs? So these are some things that we need to check and ensure that they are in place. Moving on. This is a sample school evacuation plan. Again, it depends on the structure of the building and the exit steps and the corridors. According to that, you need to create a evacuation plan on how the flow of movement of the students will take place during emergencies. As part of preparedness exercise, each school must develop a school disaster management kit, and the kit must comprise of certain suggestive list of items which we have listed below are a stretcher, ladders, a thick rope, torch, first aid box, which is most important, and I'm sure all schools are keeping this readily available and constantly monitoring the expiry dates and safety of it. temporary shelter, that is tents and tarpaulins, also to be kept available, sand buckets, fire extinguishers, mock drills. As I mentioned, from what I've seen, most of the schools, they are conducting regular mock drills, and they are the ways of rehearsing the preparedness plan. It's one of the last steps in preparedness. The mock drill on earthquake, fire evacuation may be conducted at periodic interval, preferably once in every 6 months, once in each term, and the deficiencies may be assessed. After that, you should review the effectiveness of the drill. How much time did it take? Is there some essential changes that we need to do? So we need to have a review meeting and make the necessary changes. Evacuation from the classroom, ensuring safe storage of inflammable liquids, chemicals, putting off electricity and remove or close down gas connections. Earthquake drills, they consist of practice drop, cover and hold, evacuation classroom in less than 1 minute, evacuate school in less than 4 minutes, looking out for friends, staying away from weak areas and structures, helping those who need assistance, having those flags, red flag, white flag. So they know that red flag is indicating that, this is not the zone that they need to move in, or there is still some people stuck in this area. So we should have some kind of code ways of understanding each other, because at times it's difficult to speak and with so much of noise levels. So it is good to have certain code which indicates whether it is safe, it is cleared. When you flag the white flag, it shows that yes, all these rooms are emptied. People have all have assembled at safe zones. Moving on. Capacity building and training is again very important. Enhancing disaster management skills among school communities. That's the objective of these capacity building programs. And the target groups are for teachers, non-teaching staff members, for the students, and all the stakeholders should know about its essentials. So annual training plan should include regular training for teachers and students in disaster management techniques, refresher courses to update skills and knowledge, the documentation, how is it documented, and tracking of trained individuals, and then the task forces, formation and training of specific disaster management task force within the school. Awareness generation and sensitization. The goal is to educate and sensitize students, teachers, parents, and officials about the school safety. And the annual calendar of events should involve external experts in seminars and lectures on school safety. Activities you can hold like debates, quiz, sports, drawing competitions, centered on these safety themes. Information dissemination. How are you going to do it? Through posters, through AV clips, and school rallies to promote safety awareness. Important safety information and evacuation plans should be displayed on the school notice boards, and have a dedicated month in the school calendar as preparedness month to focus on safety education and practices. Hazard response, tailored plans for different scenarios like earthquake, fires, flood, cyclone, including crowd management on event days to prevent stampedes. This also should be, institution can make these specific plans. Education continuity, strategies for delivering education during and after disasters. Emerging report, procedures to report emergencies and disasters. How should it be reported? Special provisions, inclusive measures for specially abled children, ensuring their safety and accessibility. Is it in place? Do you have a specific plan for them? And the key steps for safety, a detailed evacuation procedure, ensuring student safety from the site to handing over to the parents. So maintenance of essential service such as power, water, food, and basic first aid during an immediate disaster is very important. So the non-structural mitigation measures, the objective is to implement measures to reduce risks and ensure safe evacuation. What are the key actions that we can do? Evacuation route, ensuring passages and stairways are clear and accessible, and there are proper indicators. In the chemistry lab, make sure that the secure chemical storage are kept in safe places, well stored to prevent shattering. The staff rooms have fixed almirahs to walls to prevent them from toppling. The ceiling fixtures like fans, they have to be secured, and the lights so that they do not fall off. Fire safety, implementing comprehensive fire safety protocols should be in place and have a timeline, provide specific completion dates for each action. Safety audits, regular audits needs to be checked. Why? The objective is regularly assessing the potential hazards and ensuring compliance with safety standards. The audit areas like electrical safety, regular checks by a qualified electrician to ensure all electrical systems are safe. Are we doing this? Are we identifying the potential fire sources and inflammable materials, ensuring fire safety equipment is functional? Are we checking on the food and water safety, the hygiene audits, and the frequency? How often each audit should be conducted to maintain continuous safety? And this brings us to the conclusion of this day one webinar. I really thank all the participants for your active participations. We have been seeing the chat box. You have been sending appreciative messages saying it was very informative. We really thank you for your participation and involvement in ensuring that we take DRR to the schools and implement it for the safety and to reduce the risk and to mitigate the risk levels. I thank Dr. Swati Gupta ma'am for giving us this opportunity and for guiding us throughout in conducting this webinar. We look forward to your presence for the day 2, that is tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. We will have integration of DRR with other subjects. Thank you so much, and we will look forward for your presence tomorrow. Thank you, team, once again for being here, and to all the presenters for their valuable inputs. Namaste and warm regards. I thank Cbse for giving us all this opportunity to learn and to contribute to a safe society and safe community and a safer place for us all to live in. Thank you so much, Cbse. Namaste. Dr. Swati ma'am.